Oh, it's Friday.
It's Friday.
It's Friday.
It's Friday?
Deep dive.
I don't even know what the days are.
I actually don't either. Let's not pretend. I have no idea.
The truth is, there's a lot of life that doesn't have a solution you can just find online. So how do you know what to do when you don't know what to do?
Well, Wesley, we're in the deep dive, which means that we're in this new story about Joseph.
Joseph, that's right.
Joseph. And he had dreams, and he told his brothers, and wouldn't you know it, they were not pleased with his dreams.
This is sort of the funny part of this story. It's like it's got so much weird, funky stuff for us.
Yeah.
Like the dreams and visions. And,
Sounds a little kooky to me.
Yeah, it sounds a little weird, but I think there's some really tangible, practical stuff.
That's what the deep dive's all about.
And that's what the deep dive is all about.
And now you have a sibling. You have a sister.
I do have a sister.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so is that the same for you? Like, I don't have siblings, so it's easy for me to fudge that, but you would say... It's relatable.
I think definitely relatable, and in other relationships too, not just with my sister, with my cousins and with like people on my teams. I think one of the interesting things, Israel is the name of Joseph's dad. It's also the name of the nation they become, and that's kind of an interesting thing. Sometimes
a little double meaning going on there.
I thought I'd throw that in.
I like that a lot.
It's
to even add to that layer, it's right there. All of the brothers are the tribes of Israel.
That's right.
And what's interesting is for the next foreseeable, I don't know, is it 500 years? Those tribes are in conflict.
Yep.
They are constantly at each other. They go once they've been rescued from Egypt and Exodus. The rest of their history is the tribes not getting along, not knowing how to figure things out, which just points us back to this original story.
That's right. Yeah, so this is, time frame Garrett's talking about. You have Israel and then his 12 sons who become, not metaphorically, like literally, they each become the 12 tribes of Israel.
They sure do.
Joseph gets taken to Egypt.
Yep.
Later in our story, you'll see in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
From there, a whole nation of these people, these tribes, grow in the land of Egypt.
Yeah.
And that's how the slaves end up in Egypt and then are exodus. Did I say
Exited?
Exodus.
Exited. They're exited.
They've
been exited.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
And that's where, we start the story of Moses.
Yeah, so all that to say, the relatable side of this story is the conflict. And
That's
it
right.
is Joseph as a young boy, naive maybe, but optimist, telling them his dreams. It's not his fault he had the dreams. God probably gave them to him. And the next thing that's being used against him. He's in a pit. His life is basically ending, and he's being taken away, undeservedly punished.
Yeah.
And I know that you have a sister. Tell me a little bit about how you relate to this. You were talking about this before.
We talked about this yesterday in Storytime. My sister and I have a good relationship, but it hasn't always been perfect. There's been tension. There's been conflict. And a lot of that came out of my senior year when I was just paying attention to me, to Wes's world, to what I wanted. And I wasn't paying attention to how my actions affected her.
Right.
Or maybe even more in depth, I wasn't paying attention to all the things that were affecting her.
And I love when you mentioned that yesterday. What I think for today is what does it mean to be a positive impact on family?
Right.
What would that look like? And how did that make sense? How does that even today, fast forward today for you with a sister, make sense to you?
Every relationship with every sibling is different, but for me and for my sister, what I wish I would have done, I think, is that I would have just paid attention to the things that were affecting her. Like for that season that we talked about yesterday, my dad had to go to Kingman, which is 2 hours away, and he lived there all week long. And so he wasn't around. My mom was doing her best to hold it all together and get us to everything. It's my senior year. I'm kind of having this frustrated point because my dad's not around,
Right.
So I'm equally unaware of the things that are going on in me as I'm unaware of the things that are going on.
Just unawares
in her.
in general.
And you could not bother me to care about it. If I'm totally honest.
I relate with that. I really do. Yeah, I get in my head. We get into our zone. We kind of are neutral. And I think a lot of us this summer are going through that. I mean, the summer keeps getting delayed and extended. And the summer, everyone's dealing with COVID now, and it's on the rise again. And I think there is that vibe of it's easy for me to get in my head and just get grumpy or closed off and not know what I'm feeling or what other people around me are feeling. Yeah, I want to share this passage, Philippians chapter 2. I can't help but want to share it.
Come on.
Chapter 2, verse
So
3.
excited.
And I hope you have a Bible, and go find one, highlight this, because this is just such a great guide for addressing when we get stuck in our head at home in our life. And right now, maybe if you're watching this, you're just discouraged about your summer, you're just discouraged about how things are. This is what it says. It says, chapter 2, verse 3 of Philippians, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Those are fancy words. Selfish ambition, like all of that stuff in us that's driving us to think only about how does this affect me? Right? I heard you say that
That's
this
our
week.
that's been our
right?
question.
It's like, how does this affect me? And I think that word selfish ambition is exactly what Wes has been talking about all week. The other word, vain conceit, the word vain means empty or useless. It means this will never amount to anything. So the idea is vain conceit. The word conceit is like, I am so full of me. I am so absolutely think I'm the best. It's all about me that it makes me useless. It makes that way of thinking a complete waste of my time and everyone else's.
Sort of an extreme self-centeredness.
Oh, it's so, and actually I know what you're tempted to do right now is you can think of somebody you know like this, but be careful because it might actually be you. I deal with this. It says, don't do anything out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves. Value them above you. And that may sound like a great tattoo to get on your arm, but can you and I really do this? How hard is that? It says, verse 4, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others. This is what, Wes, you're talking about. For me to be able to think of the interests of others. What would it look like if I just made the decision today? And every morning when I woke up, I want to think about your interests, not just mine.
Right, yeah.
Right? I don't want to just look good. How do I make you look good? I don't want to just be the one who's heard. I want to make sure you're heard.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, isn't that the breakdown of our country right now? It's the breakdown of why people say masks, no masks. And it's kind of this root is I'm only thinking about how this affects me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, you talk about CCOF, right? We know that our mission statement, everything we do is to help one another follow Jesus.
Yeah.
And we use those words intentionally because I think it's possible, Garrett. Like, there's this pastor, Andy Stanley, out in Georgia.
Oh, yeah.
And he has this brilliant line. He says, it's easy to be a Christian. It's hard to follow Jesus. I think you can be a self-centered Christian. And I think there are a lot of those people out there. I used to be one of them.
I was going to say, I've been one many times.
And sometimes I still am.
That's so good.
It's very hard to follow Jesus because we talked about on Monday, the next verse 5, talks about we do that because we're modeling after Jesus.
That's right. We learned this from Jesus.
We learn this from Jesus. It's easy to be self-centered and to not care. It's difficult to care.
Sometimes it's self-preservation not to care. Sometimes I just feel like I don't want to care more or think about other people's interests because I'm overwhelmed by it.
Yep.
Right? But when you apply this, in your case, when you were younger, to your sister, it really could have helped the situation.
Yeah.
It really could have helped you guys.
So you talk about self-preservation. Do you think there's any other things that get in the way for us?
Oh, I think there's a million things. Not just self-preservation, fear.
Fear.
What if I find out I have hurt this person? What if I find out that people, those like thoughts in the back of your head, like, do people think I'm fill in the blank? What if you found out it was true? How would that shape you? So fear. And then I think lastly, probably a sense of scarcity.
Ooh,
the idea that if I go make my life about other people's interests, will anyone do that for me?
Yeah, what about me?
What about me?
Who's going to look out for me?
Right. And I think what we keep learning, the longer you follow Jesus, what we learn is that this is not a scarce universe. This is an abundant universe. Yeah. And love is a renewable resource. You are not limited on your quantities of love. Now, there is such thing as rest and balance, and I get all of that. They're all important. But at the end of the day, you don't need to go plug into a wall to get your love recharged. It's a renewable thing you can keep doing. Yeah. I just want to say to a lot of you, like, if you're in a situation where you're trying to say, I want to make a positive impact on my family, but my family isn't a Christian. Yeah. My family doesn't follow Jesus.
I had that advantage. My sister also followed Jesus. Right. It was us figuring it out together. Your mom was different.
You guys had an understanding.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and so for my mom, for example, as I was my freshman year of college, I'd just gotten out of high school. We had spent that whole first semester I was in college just talking and connecting, and I was being very intentional about my words with her. I was being very careful to always build her up, not tear her down. And I was being very intentional about pointing her to Jesus But not the, hey, did you read this the other day? But more like, hey, Mom, have you thought about this? Here's something I'm learning about. I would tell her things I found interesting about Jesus. Next thing I knew, it was summer. I was home. I was back in Phoenix. I was visiting with her. We went to Chili's, which is where all great conversations always happen. And I went to Chili's.
In the neighborhood.
That's what. Wait, is that their logo?
That's
Applebee's. You almost have me. And we're at Chili's, and I'm having this conversation with my mom. And she just, it got to that point after months of connecting, she realized, she just said, I just have so much guilt. And I just want to do something about it, and I don't know what to do about it. And I said, Mom, you should follow Jesus. You should give your life to Jesus. And it was a couple days later, we went to the church that I was connected to at the time, Christ Church of the Valley, and they have this outdoor baptistry. And we snuck into the church after hours and baptized her right there. And I just remember thinking that day, I can't believe I'm doing it. It kind of felt like I was watching myself do it. I wasn't really doing it. And I just want to say that to some of you. You have a family member you've written off. You have a family member you go, there's no way they could ever understand me. There's no way they could ever believe like I do. And I'm telling you, they can.
And even they might be too messy. They might have hurt you.
Correct.
All
correct.
These sort of things.
And you don't even know if you're the person that should talk to them. And so I tell you, God can do anything. You will be so surprised. But the only way it will work, the only way I'll play a part in that journey is that intentionality with my words, what I say, and how I was trying to build my mom up.
I think we got two really great next steps for you this week. The first one is just to see your family as a system or a unit rather than seeing yourself as an individual.
Oh,
right
like
here.
An ecosystem.
Yeah, almost like an ecosystem. I'm right back in biology class, Garrett. That's
well,
fantastic.
It makes sense to me to think of it that way because when we talk about environmentalism, like if someone removes a lizard and then takes it in Florida, 10 years later, there's 8 million of those lizards in Florida, right? But this is true at our house.
And that has a whole bunch of systemic impacts, right?
Yes.
We understand this, but for some reason we don't see it when it comes to our families.
Come on, that is so good.
That's totally true.
To know that I could have that much of a positive impact by something so small. And it's also true negatively. I like that. What's the second one?
Second step, I think, is you talked about Ephesians 4, where Paul says...
let me read it. I'll pull it up. Ephesians 4,
that's right.
29, right? This is such a good line. He says, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen.
The real kicker is according to their needs. It's personal.
Yeah.
You can't build somebody up according to their needs if you don't know their needs.
And it's situational, right? Your needs are different than mine. Your sister's, my mom's. I needed to speak according to the need. That is so good.
If I've had a hard week, it's a lot different than if I've had an awesome week.
That's really good.
What I need from other people. Sometimes we like to pretend we don't need things from other people. I'm probably the king of that.
I get that, yeah.
But I do.
No, I think there's some of you watching this that you isolate yourselves on purpose. You don't want to look needy, or you're needy,
or weak.
And that makes you feel like you don't like yourself. And I think that's exactly what the church gets to be, is the answer to that question.
Totally.
Is you are connected. Even watching this through a screen, you are connected. Absolutely.
So next step number 2 is just choose to only build.
Yeah.
Choose to only build. Refrain from tearing people down with our words, and even move away from just careless use of words.
Right.
Move into an intentionally positive use of language.
It's Friday, so what is interesting to me is, what if you made the decision, just as a weekend experiment, that today...
Just try it.
Right, today you made the decision that on Saturday and Sunday of this week, I'm only going to say things that would help someone follow Jesus. You just try this as an experiment, and then if there is anything you were going to say that would not be helpful to someone building them up or following Jesus, what if you just didn't say it? And I think what I'll be amazed at if I try this, I will, is that how much I don't talk anymore. How many things that I said with a bad motive rather than one of building someone up according to their need.
Yeah, and I think finding out what people need will come more naturally to you than you realize.
Yes.
If you just put a little bit of time and a little bit of effort into thinking about it.
That's right. Yeah. I love the deep dive with Wes Cates.
I love the deep dive with Garrett Shelton. Guys, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.